I'd be willing to bet my life and everything that I own that science will undergo another revolution in thought. There will be another paradigm shift, and we will have to rethink most of what we assumed was common sense yet again. Of course, the sun revolves around the earth. We can see it plain as day, moving across the sky. It's logically the case. Any reasonable man can see that. To suggest that we are speeding around the sun in circles at 10,000 plus miles an hour is lunacy. And then we fill in a critical gap in our knowledge, and our entire worldview, make that our entire universal view, changes, also known as a paradigm shift. This is the pattern that has been repeating throughout our existence. What makes now any different? Did that cycle stop? What makes us so sure that science and reason is the best tool for understanding the secrets of the universe? It is certainly revealing plenty of amazing discoveries, but to believe that science, logic, and reason is the only sensible tool that should be used to understand a mysterious and perhaps paradoxical universe, this is making the same mistake religions make with their ideologies. Only now we end up with a secular ideology, that is to say, a secular belief system with a faith-based foundation, much like that of religion. To believe in fixed laws of the universe, like the laws of cause and effect, for example, has huge underlying assumptions that many seem blind to. Scientists have to assume that induction works. That is to say, they believe they can use the past to make predictions about the future. A very logical pattern to take note of. If our written laws of physics suddenly changed tomorrow, science would be in deep doo-doo and have to rethink their belief system. This has already happened many times. What makes scientists so sure they are observing fixed laws anyways? How do we know the laws are not changing and evolving very slowly and imperceptibly over time? Why would we assume that the very earth we build our homes and our lives on is fixed? We used to believe that. Then we discovered we are in fact floating on tectonic plates over a ball of magma. How very counterintuitive. Certainly not a logical or reasonable assumption for that point in time. I mean, if I had suggested we were floating on a ball of magma a few hundred years ago and the only proof I had was a vision, I'd be getting the same groans and eye rolls I get today when I suggest that we might be floating on a bed of consciousness. If it is provable, we do not have the technology to prove it yet. So the masses will call me crazy, unscientific, illogical. Every other revolutionary thinker who has evolved human thought and our perspective on the world has had to put up with this ridicule from the righteous masses. Some of them were even crucified and put to death before anyone realized they were telling the truth. Did we have the same laws of physics before the Big Bang? No. The laws of existence were different. And then they changed. Scientific discovery usually involves proving some part of its own previous belief system wrong. It seems that science is the only thing that can prove science wrong. Nothing else is allowed to prove science wrong unless it uses the rules of science. Does this sound like dogma yet? The biggest breakthroughs in science usually involve us realizing that we were wrong about something. And the funny thing is, believers in science will argue this is a strength, that science corrects itself when it's proven wrong, using its own rules of proof. Yes, but what happens in the meantime while science is propagating proven ideas which are actually wrong? Why the assumption that there is such a thing as an objective reality? Because we're experiencing it, so it must be real? That's a pretty big assumption. It takes faith to believe that. Why would anyone deny that the rules of science and physics change? Those who believe in the Big Bang probably also believe that our universe had a completely different set of rules before it, during the singularity. And when we look into space now and we see other singularities like black holes, we can't apply fixed rules of physics and logic to understand how all the matter from many galaxies is occupying a singularity the size of a gnat's eyeball. The laws of the universe and physics depend on time, place, relative speed, and now one of our latest discoveries, the laws of the universe depend on whether or not there is a conscious observer. Consciousness itself is affecting the physical world in mystical, illogical ways. Why should someone watching affect whether an electron behaves like a particle or a wave? This is what the double slit experiment demonstrated. I thought the universe was supposed to be mechanical and predictable. How is it that consciousness affects the behavior of unconscious matter in this way? Why are we still trying to answer these questions with an aging paradigm that doesn't account for consciousness? All the understanding we have about our place in the material universe, thanks to science, is only based on about 4% of the picture. About 4% of the universe is matter as we know it, and the remaining 96% is some combination of dark matter and dark energy that humanity and its science do not understand at all. In fact, the very names dark matter and dark energy are merely placeholders as to what is happening in the 96%. Which the scientists feel compelled to explain because it is causally interacting with the 4%. It takes a lot of faith to believe one has a pretty good idea of what they're looking at when they can only see 4% of it. Science has some very serious assumptions at its core that make it look more like a faith-based belief system to me rather than something objective. Yes, science is doing objective things, but they are doing them with built-in assumptions as placeholders. They promise to explain how their assumptions are true later when technology and understanding advances. I spent a lot of time pointing out that science is another belief system because it has a huge blind spot that most people that I encounter are unaware of. When I say that science is a belief system and people argue, it reveals truth and facts. This is exactly what dogma is. It does not look or feel like dogma to the person who has it. It's only apparent to outsiders. There's no such thing as proof, and there's no such thing as a factual good or bad. Everything is perspective. It's critical to realize that we are all doing the same thing when we form beliefs and live by them. Nobody knows anything for sure. All we have are best guesses. So, I'll ask you, how will you handle your righteousness? Non-violently, I'm sure. So how will you handle the people around you who use violence to get their way? Surely no one in your inner circle would use violence to get their way. But what if you were part of a larger group identity, and that group used violence to force its ideas of right and wrong on other people? What would you do then? What if you were in this group not by choice, but by default? And what if everyone you knew and cared about was in this group too? What if, in the process of attempting to make the world a better place through force and violence, this group then became a victim of violence against itself in retaliation? Would you defend this group? Would you defend it and the people you care about who are in it by default? Would you defend this group violently if you faced up opposing violence? What if you're not a violent person, but your very own non-violent way of life supported this violent group? What if this group used force to take money from you and then used that money to violently propagate their own beliefs about what is right and what is wrong to the world? What would you do then?